Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of IIT India's Walk the Tech Talk series Season 2 in association with India Automated. In case you have missed out on any of our previous episodes or episodes of Season 1 of Walk the Tech Talk series, then please do check them out on IIT India's YouTube channel. Before we begin with today's episode, I would like to give you a sneak peek into the world of the IIT. The Institution of Engineering and Technology is one of the oldest and largest professional society for engineers. Soon to turn 150, our areas of focus include future of mobility and transport, future of work, and future technologies. In case you would like to become a member of the IIT, all that you will need to do is just send us an email at indiamembership@theiit.in. Now, without further delay, I would like to welcome on stage your host for this season, Mr. Pranjal Sharma, the author of India Automated, to invite our guest speaker and also the topic of discussion. Hi, Pranjal.
Thanks, Sujani. Now let me carry on and get our guest right away. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this evening. I'm now joined by Alok Kirloskar, who is the MD of SPP Pumps, also on the board of KBL as well as KPI. But the real joy about having Alok over here is not just that he's a good friend, but the fact that he is representing a family of engineers with a terrific legacy of technological innovation as India's most innovative, homegrown industrial engineering company. Alok, thanks for joining us. Let us begin by understanding a little bit more about the legacy of the family and the industrial group.
Thank you, Pranjal. Thank you for having me here, and thank you to the IIT for having me on the show. Yes, we are an engineering-based family. I think my father was very keen that I also went to an engineering university. It's one of the reasons I went to CMU, which is, of course, Carnegie Mellon University. And I think it started out with my great-grandfather, who went to MIT in Massachusetts in 1920, and I think was one of the first Indians there, and he was also an engineer. So I think that the engineering runs in the family. We are an engineering conglomerate. The family or the company has sort of celebrated 130 years this year, and has celebrated 100 years in January this year as an incorporated company. So it's been a long journey. An engineering company, started out under British rule and has continued to do well, under our own government, which is good. But I would say one of the things that has happened in those years is that apart from being India's largest pump manufacturer, we are also now Britain's largest pump manufacturer, which I think should be a matter of pride, I think, for most people in India, in the engineering sector, that we have leadership in the country that at one time, of course, was the colonizer of India. So I think that's a big change. But yes, I'm, like you said, I'm a director in KBL. I run KBI BV, which is our investment company outside India, Kirloskar Brothers International BV, which holds many of our companies outside India. And I'm the MD of SPP, which, like I said, was Britain's largest pump manufacturer.
So Alok, it's fascinating because the founder of the group innovated the first iron plow in India, and now across the group you're using cutting edge technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D printing. Across the group today, what are the various technologies which are being applied? Because its application is really the key theme for our discussion today, because these technologies are available for everybody, but the way each organization deploys it, I think that's what makes the difference between success and failure.
Pranjal, absolutely. I think as a company, we've been really focused on technology for years. I mean, for decades, not years. You possibly know, being a journalist, that my great-grandfather was never part of the Bombay Club, because he always believed that the more competition that comes in, the more current you remain. And definitely when foreign competition comes in, they come in with ideas, they come in with experience, exposure, and that helps you understand the market and take big risks. But to answer your question, yes, we have put in the world's largest 3D printers. And I don't mean to say world's largest 3D printers as something that's boastful. It's actually something that's appropriate for us. Because at the end of the day, technology needs to be appropriate for what you're going to use it for. And the small printers really didn't work for us because we do make small pumps and we make very large pumps. But from an economic point of view, the small printers just didn't make sense for the small pumps. But the very, very large printers, which we worked exclusively with a European manufacturer that have been designed just for us, work for our large pumps, work for our service business. And that's the reason why we've invested in them quite significantly. And we started this process sometime in 2010. And we had a first prototype printer delivered to us in 2014. And then subsequently, we had others come in once we've established performance. So we use that. We have AI, which similarly was started in around 2009. Initially, we started AI, and I'll give you a story why this started. I went to a major customer. At that time, I had a vice president who was my boss because I just started out in the business, maybe about 3 years before that. And in 2009, we had gone to the east of India. I mean, if I told you the city, you'd know who the customer is. So I don't want to do that. But to the east of India, to a very large commodity kind of plant. And the customer was talking to my boss. I had not given my card. So he said, Kirloskar is like a government company. I give you something and you come back to me after a month and a half, in terms of the quotation or whatever. And I thought, oh my God, I mean, this can't be our reputation with such major customers, such well-known customers. And so I asked the salesperson, why does it take us so long to respond? I mean, it's not something that we've been in this business for over 100 years. He said, yeah, but we need to go to product engineering, which is different from R&D. This is more like, adaptation of the product. So we need to go to product engineering. And, it's not just us. We have so many offices in India and outside India. All of them are asking a question. And, by the time we get a resolution, we're in queue, et cetera, it's a month, right? And I said, this cannot be, right? And that's when the first step was, how do we manage our knowledge better? And that's how we got into AI, to manage our knowledge better, convert all this knowledge that people have in their mind into a logic so that, it is easily repeatable. And the quality of that info output is consistent. Because
and it also means that you have to restructure the organization when you get new technologies, because old processes and old structures may not be suitable for new technologies.
Absolutely, because sometimes, as an example, I mentioned product engineering division. We don't have the division as we did in the past because all that is automated, right? And to be fair, when I consider what they were doing, they were full-fledged engineers, proper engineers, doing basic product adaptation and creating bills of materials, right? And today the system does that in three minutes, gives you a drawing in 3 minutes, and you don't need to wait for 1 month. But all those people actually now are in R&D where they should have been, right? And they're actually adding value, using their brains and adding value rather than just making codes and making some adaptations to your product, right?
So that's brilliant. What you've done is you've used technology to release the intelligence of engineers from very mundane administrative tasks to creative tasks where they can really focus on innovation. I think that's an important learning, perhaps.
Huge learning. And I think that is our objective. Like I said, we have AI, similarly, we have AR, which I'll come to later. But the main objective is, how do we ensure that a lot of the basic tasks are, number one, automated, number two, repeatable, and number three, consistent. Because, in India, I find two things are not very good. And maybe that's a compliment when I say it that way. One is consistency, and the second is validation of whatever you do, right? We like to do new things, but we don't validate whether the process or whatever is good, right? Maybe it works. Maybe it's a great idea. Maybe it works once, but does it continuously work and deliver to what the customer wants? And I think the AI system is able to ensure that all your mundane, everyday activities, the good work that you've done, the work that you want to bank and want to do that on a regular basis, the AI system can do that. and we can unleash the brain power of the other people to experiment and research and do all the other things that a human brain should do in terms of the breakthrough technology. Because I'll give you a great example. We did a lot of automation in our plant in the UK, and the automation does all the planning. It keeps doing optimization. But in 2014 the oil price collapsed, and in 2015 our order book was very poor in the UK, and the system did not know what to do because it was just optimizing and the work, and there wasn't enough work to optimize, right? And the human brain has to come in at that time and say, you know what, we should not be operating 7 days a week in the plant, we should be operating 3 days a week, as an example, right? And that's just one step above where you want people to operate. And that's where you realize the human brain has definitely a place, automation has a place, because even AI learning systems cannot make these kinds of decisions. And this is just not a very big decision, but this is a, let's say, middle level decision that can be made. But much bigger decisions in research, much bigger decisions in terms of how you address the market cannot be made by AI system, even a self-learning AI system. So you need.
So that's a good point, Alok, because what you're saying is also that people have a sense that technology is a plug and play model, right? You just plug like a consumer appliance, you plug and it works, and you get a great drink or a food product out of that. But the real issue is, again, applying it in the right way possible. And I think that another example is how you have applied augmented reality and virtual reality for very specific objectives, because you could use it in a way that it doesn't leave any results, or you could use it in a way with very clear gains. How did you do it at your group?
One of the first objectives when we do all these things in our group is that we have a team that does it. And I always tell them, how are we going to monetize this, right? This is not just a project to do, because this is finally shareholders' money we're spending on this, right? So there has to be a way for us to justify that there is a saving, because we're not doing some capex, or we're going to earn some revenue, right? So like you mentioned, AR and VR, what do we use it for? So AR we use in our service side of the business. We realize that we have, as let's say SPP, we have a very, very large market share on offshore platforms for oil and gas, almost 50% worldwide market share. And when an offshore platform is offline, they're losing a lot of money. And getting on and off an offshore platform is a process, because you have to get a helicopter, you have to get clearances, and you're not the only guy coming on there. There are many people coming on and off a platform. So, once you're on there, you analyze a problem. For you to get off there and come back on there with your set of tools and spare parts and whatever else is a process. And all that time, the platform's down, right? And so we had to ensure that we are able to, number one, analyze a problem, understand the problem, help the customer understand what could be wrong. So our AR system, which is available on the Apple Store, allows us and the customer to see and do some basic diagnostics, allows us to see what he's seeing, so that we are prepared and we come with the right toolkit, if at least to get the pumps temporarily operational or permanently operational, depending on what's possible after we understand and see the problem through our AR system. And the customer also understands what he can do on the spot based on what we guide him to do through the AR system. So I would say that we use it very effectively for service. We use it for effectively managing downtime, and it is our first step towards managing the customer's resources more effectively, which would of course be full-fledged IoT. But
what you've done, Alok, is also that you've taken AR and VR, which are generic in nature, but you customize it to your own needs, and that itself is a big effort, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge effort. And I would say AR is a very big effort. While VR, like we use it for training, a lot of companies use it for training. In fact, I always suggest the government should use it also effectively, in terms of vocational training, because this is a great tool. I mean, Germany, of course, is so far ahead of us. They actually have the full institute. But if we want to really use the demographic dividend, the government can put up such kind of VR training centers for in villages for vocational training. So, but that's a separate point. But yes, we use it for training, and we use it in place of in some cases in place of our on-site training center in our plants, where we train people before they're on the actual line. So that's usually where we use VR, and we found it to be reasonably effective. Of course, AR, I think AR is one step ahead. in terms of what's possible, and the people get a better feel for the items that they're handling. So I think AR is one step ahead, and that's probably why we use it for service, because it's
What has been the experience, Alok, of asking engineers, maybe trained in traditional ways, to embrace new concepts like this, especially when you're applying it to a real situation where, at the end of the entire effort, you need to make sure that there is a profit, there's a benefit for all stakeholders.
It's a mixed bag. I'd say the younger engineers embrace it, they like it. The older engineers, again, like I said, the older engineers, the AR system for them is a knowledge management system, right? We want to take the knowledge that the older engineers have in their minds and put it in the system. So there's of course resistance, like there was for like the previous example of the AI system, a lot of resistance. But at the same time, we have to make them do it, because at the end of the day, when an engineer visits site, the company pays for him to visit that site. So whatever he sees at that site belongs to the company, right? So whatever experience he's had, the way he's addressed that problem, it's all done on company's time. So the company needs to be able to bank that. So when the next young engineer comes, he has a shortcut to be able to resolve the problem faster. But it's a mixed bag. I think the young engineers like it. They're able to resolve problems faster. It's like a old sage telling them what to do through the process, because somebody else's knowledge is banked in there.
Actually, that's important, because what you're doing is you're fast tracking experience and allowing younger engineers to adopt and make the best of very experienced hands. My final question and thought with you is about the future, Alok. What do you see as the future in terms of what kind of technologies do you see KBL and the group will use, SPP will use? Are there some new ideas and projects in the pipeline which you would like to say or talk about?
I would say that we want to build out what we have to start with, because we do use 3D. We've enhanced it for what our service business per se, because it's not just servicing our pumps. We now take service contracts and maintain many oil offshore platforms with BP, Shell, etc. So we want to build out that business with with this technology. We also want to understand how this technology can be better used for selling, because you already see AR as well as VR being used to sell things, right from furniture to sunglasses to things like that. How can we use it for, let's say, our pump houses, right? Because today you take all these dimensions, etc., but you don't really visualize it that well for a pump house. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to now push forward to use this even on the sales side. Because the only tool I would say that we have on the sales side is something called salesforce.com, which is a customer relationship management tool, CRM tool, what they call. But we have not yet used these more effectively on the selling experience. And so I think that's something that we would like to definitely capitalize on, because historically as a company, we're known for our technology, efficient products, that sort of the side, but we're not necessarily known for being very aggressive in the market. And that's something that I think we want to change, and we want to see.
And I think that's something, Alok, that you as a fifth generation engineer, who also now is a very smart and aggressive salesperson, would do. And I think that's also a good learning, that engineers also need to learn the larger pieces of business and how things work. Alok, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today. I think our viewers would have got a fantastic glimpse of what KBL Group is doing, and I'm sure there's far more that you could have talked about, but we've run out of time. Thanks again for joining us on this conversation of Walk the Tech Talk.
Thank you, Pranjal. Thank you for having me here, and thank you to IIT for having me here as well.